Hello and welcome to the Bluff Project podcast. I'm Tate Hieronymus. I'm your host, and today we have something a little different, or tonight, or whatever. We're recording at night. It's 1 a.m. here in Florida. But anyway, enough of the time. For the first time, we're doing like a Bigfoot round table discussion on Bigfoot topics and what have you. And I have 4 guests joining me. So guys, why don't you introduce yourself? You can just go for it. It's a free-for-all. Whoever wants to start.
My name is Raymond Ray, at the real Raymond Ray, and I've been doing Bigfoot investigations for almost a decade, and yeah, that kind of stuff.
Nice. I love it.
Nice.
I love it.
I'm an investigator with the BFRO. So.
Nice.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome. I guess I'll go next. I'm Jonathan. I have a YouTube channel called Western Bigfoot Exploration. I kind of just started it to document all my times out there. And got into this thing around 2013, 2015. I started getting into some cool spots, meeting some cool people out there, and I've been doing it ever since.
Awesome. And then
I'll go. You go.
All right, cool. So I'm Jeremiah. I am a host of the Bigfoot Society podcast. I like to talk to people that are in the field of Bigfoot and cryptozoology and get their story and ask them interesting and fun things and just have a good time. Been doing it for about a year. That's about it.
And last but also least, I am Conor Anderson. I've been doing this for about 10 years, and I currently work at the North American Bigfoot Center.
We got a very diverse group of people here.
Oh yeah,
but I love it. Okay, gentlemen, I'm just gonna start and get into it. So I'm just gonna share some photos. I'm gonna ask you guys some questions. Will there be some questions?
Ooh.
All right.
So I want this to be like Bill O'Reilly, where we're all arguing over each other and stuff. It just makes
start yelling is what you're looking for.
Yeah,
pretty. Start yelling. I heard start yelling.
Yeah, no, start yelling, and then whoever talks first, whoever wins the argument, gets to talk. It's kind of how it works. Okay, so
Whoa.
First off, what is your guys'
Okay.
opinion on the legitimacy of this film, which is the Mabel Martin footage? Now, whoever wants to kick off, go for it.
Okay. First off, it's something on 2 legs, clearly, right? And it wanders up and down that ridge on 2 legs. So it's one of 2 options. It's either a Bigfoot or it's a person. There's not enough detail to be able to say one way or another. It's a weird looking guy if it's a guy, and it's a weird looking Bigfoot if it's a Bigfoot. I don't know if there's any way to prove it one way or the other.
Okay, so 2 things about this. Number 1, if you saw this footage without it having any Bigfoot words around it or anything, would you think, yeah, that's a Bigfoot?
No,
I don't know if I could say that.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, I don't know. Yes as in no, I don't think I would.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that video starts off by them filming around, and they filmed this little shed thing that someone obviously built. It looks like a hunting shed, or I've seen them out here in the Angeles National Forest. People build them kind of for fun. And they started off with that, and their first instinct was, oh, this is where Bigfoot could live. Like they already started throwing the Bigfoot out there. And then it's when they turned up the mountain and they saw this figure, and they already had this preconceived notion that that's what they were going to see. And in finding Bigfoot, when they recreated this, it looks like it's a long way away. But when Bobo walked up there, it didn't seem like that. It didn't seem very far away at all, right?
No.
From what I remember.
Go ahead. Wasn't this filmed by a church youth group as well?
I think it was.
Something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they saw Jesus. Maybe that's Jesus.
Oh boy.
Jesus is taller.
All right. So
Oh, boy.
Here's one thing that stands out to me.
Okay.
I've never seen a Bigfoot walk without purpose. In any legitimate video, going somewhere. It's doing something. The Bigfoot in this Marble Mountain footage looks like it's lost or it's trying to find a contact lens. It walks, it turns around, it goes back, it goes forward, it stops, it dinks around on the hillside. I've never seen anything in nature do that unless it was chasing like a mouse or something. So it's just very weird. Second, the proportions, they're hard to tell because it's so grainy, but I just feel like it'd be a whole lot more massive sideways than it is tall. It's tall, it seems lanky, it seems skinny. I don't know. It's just, it could be a resolution issue, but it's not my first thing that I would jump out and say, oh my God, that's a squatch. It's just
Right.
not what I go with it.
It's not walking like Patty, that's for sure. You know,
No.
Right? No swinging. The gait is wrong. It's just somebody run up on the hill and, you know, it just doesn't, it's not.
Yeah.
It's just not.
And I don't think they were deliberately hoaxing. I think they were just Bigfoot on the mind, and the rest played into their imagination.
Yeah, they just saw some hiker up there and they ran with it.
Yeah,
Yep,
because
exactly.
like when they did on Finding Bigfoot, the legs were really washed out, and you would think if it's something. I mean, not to say there's not skinny Bigfoots, there are, but the way people describe them walking on even rough terrain is they're very fluid, and this isn't. This is like if Bigfoot got in your cooler and drank all your beer and then went hiking.
Exactly. That's my point. It's like,
Yeah.
The other thing is there's a certain point when the shape is between two trees and you get a real good side profile. I think the fact that the trees were there kind of stopped the washout for just a second. And it looks like it's wearing a jacket.
Yeah.
Oh man.
You look at Patty and there's a solid line that goes from the back around the ass, down to the legs, and the arms are like just as bulky at the shoulders as the body is. But in this video, it literally looks like there's a jacket, and then there's actually quite a few times it looks like he's wearing a jacket. It looks like a person with a big jacket on.
Right. I mean, even
some of those
right
instances
here,
too. I remember
what that could be. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of those instances I remember, it almost looked like if the person had their hands in the front of their jacket pocket too. You know, like you don't see any arm
kind of
swing,
looks like
you just see
that.
the legs.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
it's very interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
That's a
So in
unanimous
conclusion, we all
decision.
think it's a Bigfoot. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a 7-footer.
Oh yeah.
100%.
I'm gonna have to
Told me that
check
with
and
his
say
mind.
no.
Something else that stands out to me, you know, a Squatch, they're pretty keen on their surroundings. And at the beginning of this video, those people were like laughing and bouncing around and jumping. I don't think there'd be a Squatch that is within a view that wouldn't have seen or heard all that.
That's
and
a
then
good
just walking around right on the ridge, not going down, not going towards, just right on the ridge line.
And there's nowhere for it to hide.
There isn't. It's very weird. This is not screaming Sasquatch.
No.
A very comparable I should say pictures is the was it Star help me out with this one, Star Mountain, was it, or the one in the snow?
The Silver Star photograph.
Silver Star, yeah, it's very similar, but whatever that was booked it, right? I mean, that was only a couple seconds, right? I think that's the most comparable that might be real. And in comparison to this is just a person wandering around.
For sure. The whatever's in the Silver Star photographs has the same build that Patty does.
Yeah,
Interesting.
really big and bulky.
Yeah, this thing does not look like either of those.
Yeah. All right, so that's a good debate. I like that.
I would actually, I want to touch on that one more time. The Silver Star.
Yeah.
Definitely take a look at that versus the Marble Mountain.
Yeah,
100% difference as far as the bulkiness, the massiveness, the how square the shoulders are. I mean, it's really there's a big difference.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, since we're the Bluff Creek Project podcast, this is always going to be a debated one. What is your guys' opinion on the legitimacy of this film?
I think it's CGI.
Dang you, Conor.
This is a Disney film, guys.
Is it?
No.
There's no way. There's no way they could have created that.
For those of you who can't see what we're talking about, we're looking at a still from the Patterson Gimlin film.
Good call, Conor.
Yeah.
There you go.
which I would say is definitely the best piece of video or photographic evidence that we've collected so far. We as not like personally, but you know.
Okay, so
Undoubtedly.
you guys aren't going to like me very much.
Oh God.
So the high res, the retooling of the footage when they made it super clear.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of features on that creature that makes me think that is not a guy in a suit. You can see muscle movements. You can see the whole body jolting with every step, and
100%.
the way it jolts. I mean, but before that screen grab that you have there, just before that, there's a point at which the sun glints off the back of the Squatch, and there is a perfectly shaped U, like a flap, hanging down over its back.
Oh, dang it!
Now, maybe, in the way that when it gets split ends, and it's based on where they sit, and the things that they're rubbing against on the hair, kind of just takes a natural curve around the bottom of their head. Maybe just from going through the brush and sitting on logs and whatnot, that the fur has taken a natural curve. But originally, before the high res, I swear to God, I thought that was a guy in a suit because of that flap down the back. Like the whole back goes straight down, and it just hangs there, and the butt comes out from underneath the straight flap. Now, in the high res video, that added a lot more detail. That was, it's unquestionable. There's muscle mass, there's, whatnot. But there's a lot of people who still look at that flap and say, that's the back of a costume. That's the top half of a costume. I don't know. I think that with the second half of the video, when you really get into, you can see the leg motion, the arms. There wouldn't be that much motion on a suit if there wasn't muscle directly under the surface of the skin.
Yeah.
It would be hanging.
Geez, sorry. Rowdy Kelly talked about something pretty interesting too. When you see that part of the film where you can see her back, he says you can see a hackle raise. Now, it makes sense to me. Now, if you think like a dog, when they get spooked, their hackle raises on their back.
Okay.
Right.
So maybe if that is a hackle that's raised or not a zipper, or, she is spooked. She's walking away. She's frightened. And it could just be a defense thing.
Now, where Rowdy said that hackle was right after she turns and looks at them and then turns back forward, right?
I think so. It was either that.
I think that's what he was telling me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and me personally, I think that it's real. I was a skeptic for a long time. I would point out the thigh. I would point out the diaper-looking butt, the lack of motion in the butt, and I always thought I had no idea how they did it. But my guess was something like I was in Macy's one day and I saw some old lady walking around with this like black fur jacket, and I thought, oh my God, that looks just like Patty. Like I really, I think that's the best way to replicate it.
Think that out loud.
I yelled it.
Oh my God.
Well, that scored it out, but not arrested. No, I'm just kidding. But so I saw that and I thought maybe it is possible, and it kind of did look like it had, muscle to it because it was a fluff. So I was trying to figure it out for a long time. And of course, everybody has those red flags that they raise. Oh, well, Patterson was, kind of sketchy guy and all, and everybody's gone over those. But the truth is like once you really sit down and look at it, and you look at it in, as in the highest definition that we can possibly get, you start seeing other things. Like my favorite part is the opening frames. Frame one, when you see her walking, I think there's a video on YouTube that someone slowed down and it's super clear. It's the one where she raises her foot and you can see her
the whole bottom of the foot.
Yeah. Over there in the North American Bigfoot Center, you guys did an awesome job with replicating the size. I think that's one of the coolest things in the past 10 years almost of Bigfoot wise, having the Patty's actual size.
Yeah,
with that footprint that you guys got.
That's one of the coolest things we have in here, I think.
For sure.
And, I mean, looking at that she's not huge, like height-wise, but she's just bulky, Yeah. And if you were patting somebody up in a suit with that much bulk, you're going to
You're
have
gonna
to
be
change
sweating.
the entire way that the person moves, right? And when you
Correct.
look at the most high-tech, state-of-the-art ape suits of the time, that's Planet of the Apes. Those guys are running around in furry pillowcases, and it just looks,
you can tell
not like this.
Correct.
the appendages move, the arms move, the legs move.
Yeah.
But the fur just hangs there. It has there's no movement at all. And when you look at the PGF, it's definitely got. There's, like I said, every step you can see a ripple go all the way up the leg.
It's intense.
You won't get that
And
with a suit.
The more and more you look at it.
Female?
Well, I used to say, oh, if you go out to the middle of nowhere and you put boobs on the suit, people are going to absolutely think it's real. That was my actual defense of why it was fake, But then, so I started looking at it more and more and more, and I actually listen to this. You guys listen to Astonishing Legends podcast? I talk about it every time I'm on somewhere. And to me, I was on episode 4, and I was already texting people how can I get to the film site? I got to go see it. This is absolutely real. There are too many perfect details leading up to it and after it that are okay, this suit had to make footprints, okay, and the footprints are they're good enough to track Dr. Meldrum and a handful of other PhDs. Not only that, but when he left, he called up a few people. He called Hodgson, Bob Titmus, and a few other people. He said, come down, check it out for yourselves, and they went down there and they couldn't debunk it themselves. And so he did call people right away. And
Bob Gimlin saying they were trying to jump off logs and stumps and stuff to try and get the depth of the footprint, to replicate that depth, but they couldn't get it.
Right.
So someone in a suit couldn't do that.
Yeah, if it's a person in a suit, they've got sandbags on their shoulders, 14-inch flippers on their feet, and they're in a costume where they can't see out the eyes and their elbows shouldn't work.
Yeah.
So that starts falling apart.
And walking through sand.
Right. Yeah.
And where was the evidence of them stopping to put this costume on? That's what the guys that went in there afterward were looking for as well. And they couldn't find anything.
And another thing that makes me believe it. Well, I've met Bob several times, and I don't think of him being a liar whatsoever.
Okay.
But another thing is, if you've seen the Renata Hendon 71 overview shot of the film site, it has this weird way of making the film site look bigger than it is. Because I know, Jonathan, you've been there. When you're actually there, it's much smaller in person.
It is.
And they were a lot close. They were super close enough to see whether this thing was fake or not.
Like I told people, when we were all remember 15, 20 years ago when we'd pick up one of those little cameras and wind them up and take a picture, and you're taking a picture of some awesome airplane flying by at an air show or something, and you take a picture, then you develop the film and you look at it and the airplane looks like it's this little micro machine, Sure. It's like you're a mile away. It's the same exact thing here, where he was a lot closer. I think I spent a lot of time at the film site when I spent the night there, and it must take 3-4 seconds to sprint from where Roger was to where Patty was in 352. I mean, he was really close.
Yeah.
It looks far away.
Okay, guys. So the consensus, I guess, on this is it's a real Bigfoot.
Oh, 100%.
100%, yeah.
Yep.
So the next photo is the Paul Freeman footage. What is your guys' opinion on this one?
So I'm gonna be so let me preface a few things. I'm a podcast host. I'm not I hadn't seen this is my first time seeing when you told me about what we're gonna be talking about a little bit before, I'd never seen the Freeman footage. So this is new to me, okay? So don't judge me on that. But so I did a lot of research on this, and I don't know what to think on this one yet. This is a tough one because it's the way he's walking is different than how Patty's walking. The way that Patty's looking around, but then I don't know how to feel about this one yet. It's gonna take some more work for me to research it.
I think Conor, you and I talked about this a couple months or last month, wasn't it?
That was like a couple weeks. When was that? Was that time doesn't matter anymore? Recently, yeah.
Recently,
right.
we did talk about it,
Yeah.
and like you were saying, the way she walks, Jeremiah,
Or the way she's looking around. You know,
I think it. I mean, she has, or it, or whatever, if he or she has that bulk to her, or it.
sure.
I'm just gonna say it because I don't know what gender. But I think for the reason it's walking kind of different is because maybe it's in thicker vegetation, whereas Patty, it was open sandbar.
Right.
You can totally
The whole situation is different. Sorry, you go for it.
He pans down to the ground right in front of him while he's filming it. You can see how much thicker and how many more obstacles there are. So, I mean, it's definitely a good point that Patty was running across the sandbar, and this was going through some heavily forested area, lots of obstacles on the ground. You can totally see it in the foreground on the footage.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and this thing in the Freeman footage, it's reacting to Paul Freeman and a camera, whereas Patty's reacting to a couple guys on a few horses, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say the reaction of the Sasquatch I would imagine could be different logically. So the fact that this thing kind of meanders across, looks at Freeman and kind of keeps going, doesn't sound like that's not a huge red flag for me.
Okay,
because whatever's in this
for some
in this,
other people.
These
There
things
was
do weird things.
Yeah.
So there was some sort of controversy about Freeman himself about possibly faking footprints, but then again they said, oh no, he was faking them to show, that the ones that he found were real. I remember that something in there like that.
Yeah,
but,
my understanding was, sorry, not to.
If you could clear that up, please. That's kind of it was a question.
My vague understanding of that is that Paul Freeman at one point said that he had made tracks before and was taken out of context because he had made them in his garden to see how fake tracks worked. So I think that's the general.
Okay.
Is my understanding.
Yeah,
I never
which
talked to
logical.
Paul Freeman, but that's exactly.
And as far as this one goes, he's filming. He looks down and he's filming Bigfoot tracks. There's tracks going in every which direction and saw in some dirt, and then he picks up and he goes, "Oh, there they go."
Oh, there he is.
He walks down. There's a lot of people that say this, but I can't see it. I watched this video thousands of times, I think, and I can't see it.
Yeah.
People say, "Oh, if you keep a close eye on it, it picks up a little one and it walks off." And I've heard that from different people, lots of different people. That they're seeing. I'm like, how are you seeing this? Where is that in the video? I don't see it. Have you guys know anything about that?
I don't think I think maybe there was one kind of down. I think there was one down the hill somewhere. But I mean, if that was the case, I feel like she or he would be walking much faster away than just a casual stroll through the forest.
Yeah, they say that it happens when it walks across and then it kind of makes a beeline going away from Freeman. They say, "Oh, that's when it picks it up," and you can kind of see. I don't know. I gotta but that's something that.
Sorry.
So good, man. Jump right in, dude.
The delay is weird enough that I don't know when to start talking. We have this in one of our displays here, and I spend a lot of time stabilizing it to make it as clear as we possibly can.
Oh wow!
And at no time do I see any evidence in the video of the animal bending over to pick something up or picking anything off the ground.
Same here.
So if that's something that Freeman said he saw while filming, we can't. I don't know. Based on what I've seen in the actual film, which is really all we have to go by, I don't think it picks anything up.
No, I don't think so either.
Good. Yeah,
I think it's just the way the camera and the angles were. It just kind of made it possibly look like it was picking something up, but in reality, not really.
I don't know if it's real. I'm on the fence about this one. I'm totally. I watched it thousands of times, read about Freeman, and I'm on the fence about this one. I could go either way.
For me, it'd be like Patterson Gimlin film is real. If this is fake, it's better than anything Todd Stanton has done. I'm just saying that.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
Even for a fake video, this is way better than what Todd Stanton has shown people. So, I believe there's a really good chance this is real. And then the Marble Mountain footage, I just don't think that's real at all. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, that's not a Bigfoot in that one.
So I guess the consensus on this, the Paul Freeman footage is, we're kind of split. It sounds like a little bit.
I would say generally probably a Bigfoot, but
it could be.
Yeah.
It could be.
Yeah,
I would just say it's undeterminable at this point because lack of evidence is just there's just no way to for sure say yes or no.
Yep.
I need to do more research. Yeah.
Yep.
Not enough data.
Yeah, that's what's missing.
Yeah.
Okay, so some next things are some tracks that I found.
That you found yourself?
Yeah, actually, Raymond, this is where we were on the BFRO expedition in Southern California. That road. What do you guys think of these tracks? We're looking at some pictures of tracks that have been found on some expeditions. For people who don't know, what do you guys think? Just want to get your opinion on them.
It's a horse.
Big horse, dude.
A horse with toes, kind of looking.
Yeah. Just kidding, Tate.
What size are your shoes, Tate?
I think I wear like 10s and like just Converse, so that's kind of a well-known shoe.
Mm-hmm.
So, am I foot? I don't know how to.
What's the conversion
photographs
of Converse to inches?
Tate, where was I when you took that picture?
That's interesting. You weren't there. This is a friend of mine and I that were camping in a place after I tweeted Cliff Barrickman. He's like, yeah, go to this place out in Southern California. And I went there and I was just looking around and I found this, which looked suspect to me. I didn't have a tape measure, which is a rookie move. So I just had to use my foot.
Was there anything else around it?
No. And that's the thing. It's like, if there was more, I'd be more inclined to say it was something not human.
You could be a water pool. I mean, it could be anything.
Could be a bear.
Without even not even a bear. I mean, without any other prints around it, something that defined, you'd have scuff marks. I mean, if you look at all the ground around it is all the rocks facing up are white. You can tell they're washed in the rain, so all the tops of the rocks are clean. And then actually inside, you've got exposed dirt, and it's just not the same surface, which means it got kicked up. So you would expect to see, like, you see all the white rocks around it, and then how the inside of the print, it's all dark and muddy.
Yeah.
There would definitely be at least scuffs around it in where you would expect to see the next print. It wouldn't be that defined and that clear and literally nothing around it. I would need to see scuffs around it, at least like it was the scuff for the next step and the next step and the next step, especially in that terrain right there with that surface with those white rocks and then how muddy it is or dark it is on the inside of the print. There would be something else turned up where you would expect to see the next step. Even if it wasn't a defined print, there'd be disturbed ground that would lend itself to appear to be a track sequence. There's just nothing else around it.
Yeah, even if the ground was hard and then for some reason this one spot was more affected by something heavy, there would be definitely more stuff to show that something was walking that line or that path.
Is that a riverbed or what is that, a road?
The road is actually right behind me. It's a paved road, but it goes up to a dirt road. So this place is mainly for like hunters and people who go backpacking and hiking out in California.
So that's like the wash next to the road, or what is that?
What'd you say?
Is that like the area next to the road, like the embankments, or is it?
It's up the hill, not going down the hill. On the right, if you're going up the mountain, that's on the right hand side.
How far off the asphalt is this print?
Like right off the asphalt, and it was going like from. It was going uphill, not downhill.
Okay, so like maybe it was walking along the edge of the road, and then it took a step out, looked around, did something, got back on the asphalt, and kept walking. I mean, obviously, even though they're used to walking in the wild, anybody who has the opportunity to walk on a paved surface is going to do that to avoid the rocks.
Sure.
Yeah. Animal or not.
Right.
But I was thinking maybe it was walking along the road, stepped off, took a look at something, and then went back on the road and kept going. I mean, that could be a scenario where there'd be one single print on an embankment.
But I figured if that's the case, it would have a lot more weight when it kind of hopped up there,
True.
like with that amount of weight, I mean, it could be a smaller one, which could lend to the fact that there's not too much, but still.
This is going to be another one of those situations. It's just inconclusive. There's not data.
Yeah,
but that goes to show,
pictures
like
of single photographs without any sort of context are always tricky to.
Right.
Yeah.
And it goes to show, like, it just goes to show,
footprints.
like,
they always. It's so hard to take a picture of a footprint. You'll have great prints and take pictures, and then you look at them, and it's like, this doesn't even look. I had one in the Sierras in 2015, and if you looked at it, you'd be like, wow, this is either a person with like a size 12 foot, or or the real deal. But I took pictures of it, and I'm like sitting there trying to explain to people, if you look really close, you see the toes here, and it's really hard to get detail from photographs. But
yeah, you gotta have an angled light coming at you from a different direction than the camera. You can't use a flash on the camera if you had a secondary light source coming off from like the right or the left that casts a shadow in the print. Gives you a lot more detail. Without that,
so
pictures are rough.
This was actually during the day. That's the sun to the left, and then my foot is casting in the shadow because the sun is. So.
Yeah. That's why I always have like 10 pounds of plaster in my backpack when I go out.
Yeah. If sometimes, you know what, and this is for the listeners, if you're out there in the field and you see any prints, make sure you always have a tape measure and plaster just in case, because there's no scale in this photo, or it's just, like you guys said, there's not a lot of data to show for it. Which is unfortunate.
I'm gonna ask a newbie track casting question.
How dare you?
Is there like a go-to book that you guys like recommend where it's like, okay, this is how you cast Bigfoot tracks, or like, is there anything like that? And I haven't heard of like
YouTube video.
YouTube, yeah, that's what I was thinking. YouTube videos.
That's your best bet.
Cool.
Yeah.
I would say
practice a million times on things that aren't Bigfoot tracks.
That's what I hear.
Yeah. I think if you get the consistency right in the track mix, if you will, it'll definitely help you out.
Cool.
Probably practice a few times on other prints, your own shoe and stuff, because my biggest fear is finally seeing a nice clear print and like, oh, I poured it, it's the wrong consistency. There goes
exactly.
On.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a really funny story I know that, well, that was in 2015. That same track, we tried to cast it, and we didn't have any plaster cast, but there were a few people smoking a particular plant, and they had this idea to cut up a bunch of toilet paper and toothpaste and water, and they tried, and it didn't work. But it was very interesting for them to try that.
That makes a lot of sense.
It was a great idea.
Here's another track. For people listening to the podcast, I'll be posting these track photos on the Instagram page so they can actually see them. But on this one, this is the second print. It looks like a print, but this is where people got to be careful because I'm pretty sure it's not.
No, I don't think so.
16 inches.
The heel looks good. My problem with it is the debris where the ball would be and the mid-tarsal break. That would all be smashed down.
Yeah.
Not only that,
it's a bummer because you really want that to culminate into a print. Looking at that heel is it's pretty defined. But when you get to the top, there's no way that a Squatch foot, he'd have to be running with his toes curled and just the outside right edge of his foot touching the ground. There's just too much on the top left of it where the debris isn't smashed into the print. I mean, it looks like a water puddle.
It's crazy though, because like you said, the heel's good. The length is there too.
Yeah, it's
what's weird is if you look at the ground all around it, it's dry, and where it looks like a footprint, it's all wet.
Which is because it's depressed, and that's where the water last gathered up as it dried out. The debris on the left side is a big killer for me.
So yeah, the debris is the hard thing. Who knows? Maybe it was walking weird, or maybe it got hurt.
Is this the only track?
There was a smaller one kind of up to the left of it.
Where's the picture of that one?
This was up on the 33.
No, where's the picture of the smaller track?
And do you have a picture of both tracks in sequence with the scale item in that picture as well?
I have it on my other phone, unfortunately, but I will post that too.
Okay.
How long was the smaller? Like, how many inches was the smaller track approximately? Do you remember?
Probably 10 inches.
Okay.
Big question. Was there any other prints around it?
Just this one, and then that smaller one.
My biggest problem with that is that obviously that ground, a quarter of an inch under the topsoil, is wet. And in that type of surface, there's no way it's going to walk through it and not leave tracks in front of or behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just, it's that ground's not hard enough to be able to sustain that kind of weight. And 1 foot leaves a depression like that and nothing else does. It just, that doesn't add up at all. So that's 2 points on me right there. The debris on the left side and the lack of other prints. I'm going to tell you that's probably a water puddle. And the reason why it's not dried out like everything around it, it's slightly depressed. And it's the last thing that's going to evaporate the water out of it.
Yeah, I'd be more on board with track number 1.
Yeah, and it's the thing. Yeah. It's like people will think things are tracks, and then you just got to be careful to the power of suggestion to not let your mind trick you and be like, oh, this is definitely a Bigfoot track, and then when it's not really.
So I'll give you an example when you might find a single track like that. If you were walking across an area that was like gravelly, and there was a dry creek bed or a drainage that had just drained out, and it was walking on the bank where there was lots of rocks and there wasn't anything like this to leave a track in, and then it stepped into it and then stepped back onto the next bank, that's where I could say, okay, you know what? Maybe it was walking up on the rocks and stepped into the mud and then went back up on the rocks again on the other side and kept going. That's probably the only scenario where I'd say that, okay, a single track by itself in a whole area is plausible.
Yeah.
But what was weird was on the outer edges, I don't see the characteristics of like a footpad pressing down and then coming back up. It looks like the ground
and
disturbed in a different way other than something stepping in it.
And like you guys were saying, the debris, like this clump would be pushed down more right there. And then other stuff would be impressed in the ground too. Like that little.
You're talking how many hundreds of pounds pushing down on it? There's no way that would be there.
Yeah. So this is a good example of kind of what to look for, but not to be tricked by.
Perfect example of matrixing. Your brain's trying to make it happen, but it's just not there.
Exactly.
The more you take pictures of things like this and show them to people, the more you're going to learn. So it is worth taking these pictures and showing them and learning about them, because you're learning what is not a Bigfoot footprint sometimes. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So this next print, it's also a single track, but we took pictures from 2 different angles. This was in the Bluff Creek area, in a pretty big open area. Jonathan, it's that when you get up to the top of the mountain. Remember where we saw that abandoned car?
That little turnout. Oh
yeah. This is that
turnout by Onion
area.
Lake.
Yeah, that whole open area. As soon as you get to the top of the ridge, you kind of turn right. Then there's a whole gravel area.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean, it's not uncommon for people to go here, but what's weird about it, if you look, it's too wide to be a boot print.
How long is it?
There's no context to go off of how big this is.
It looks like a shoe from here, right?
It looks like a shoe. It's about boot range, which is, I think it's a person.
If it's about boot size and kind of boot shaped in a place where boots probably are, I would lean boot first.
Yeah, I was leaning towards boot. But what do you guys think? Because you said boot, but you kind of see where this mound of gravel appear.
Go back to the last angle. Right there. That line that's running diagonally from 4 o'clock position to 11 o'clock position.
Yeah.
Is that a tire track?
No.
Tate, zoom in on that.
Enhance.
Enhance.
That has to be a skinny tire.
Well, I'm just wondering because if it's somebody opens the door, steps out, spits, pukes, and then gets back in and goes.
Let me see if I can draw. See if I can draw on this.
I'll say this
God.
though, that ground there is pretty. I don't remember being able to make footprints like that when I walked around. It was pretty hard packed.
Yeah, that's
I'm
interesting.
not saying it is, but I could. It's like this is the most.
So that's the
interesting one so far by far.
That print right here is about a boot size.
Like I said,
but
you just
it's
drew
about boot size. It's about a boot size. So it's definitely not tire because that'd be a really skinny tire. That'd be like a little Geo Metro car or whatever.
Maybe it's a bicycle. He just put his foot on the ground for a second.
I would say that whatever this is of the pictures so far, this was left by a living thing.
Like,
probably a person.
It does look like something.
Yeah, but of the 3 photographs, the other 2 could be just puddles or depressions in the ground. This is probably something walking.
No, I'll say this. So my last trip up there was just a few months ago, and I found some very, very similar to this. It's on my second video, and I posted the picture up, see what people think about it, if I can get some, pretty good answers about what it is. And Jamie Wayne from the Bluff Creek Project said he's a geologist. I guess it doesn't take a geologist to know this stuff, but he is. And he told me it's probably just an indentation from like ice and snow or the way water drained. And once he said that, I said, okay, this makes sense now, because like I said, where I found a print similar to that was it was just as hard packed. But this location, it's kind of in the middle of, there's nothing near it, right? There's nothing near it. Like I found it on the side of the road where ice and snow melt could form an indentation. And that's what I found. That's what it was. This one looks a lot more interesting than the one I found and it's on similar ground. So
yeah. And like, this is out of the 3 photos, this is like Conor said, this is something living. But another interesting thing for out in the Bluff Creek area is there's a lot of ridges out there. And a lot of the Bluff Creek guys and us think, and I think too, most of the action that happens are on ridges, because it seemed like stuff was happening on ridges this last trip. And you found a print on a ridge, and this track is on a ridge.
That does come up in so many different things, Tate, that I've, read and heard from people that, things do happen on ridges, it seems, with Bigfoot, which is, that's really interesting.
Well, you would think that that's where they're going to be, because they can get the best vantage point of everything around them.
Exactly.
In this area,
they've always got an exit strategy up there too.
Yeah, in this area where this track of something was taken, yes, there's people up there, but you got to think too, the gates that, to get into this area, there's gates, and they're only open from like July to October, and then throughout the rest of the year, nobody can get in there. And from this vantage point, you can see the whole valley to the film site, to our main camp, and then on the other side, you can see the other side of the valley, pretty much to the ocean on a clear day. And then there's a famous place called Onion Lake where Finding Bigfoot has gone, where a lot of weird things have happened, which is maybe a couple miles from where this is. So
were there more prints, or was this the only one on that spot?
Yeah, sadly, that's the only one. So it's like the print is interesting, but there's not enough to go off of.
See, but they're just popping in and out of portals and like stepping on the ground and leaving just to mess with us, aren't they?
Oh no! Portals to Skinwalker Ranch, dude.
He looked around and left.
Yeah, but who knows, dude? Maybe they can walk light or something, or I don't know. Maybe they have wings.
Just really good at jumping.
It's a mountain.
Oh yeah.
So guys, there's a couple stories I want to ask you about. What do you guys think of the Ape Canyon incident?
Ooh, good one,
dude.
I like it. It's cool.
Story.
I mean, yeah.
Great story.
And there's if you go on YouTube to help you, for everybody out there, go on YouTube and under Sasquatch Archives is a channel, and he has the entire Roger Patterson interview with Fred Beck. And they go through the whole story.
Oh, wow.
It's really neat.
Let's check that out.
Yeah, dude. This Ape Canyon thing, it's such a crazy story. Like, I would love to live through that event. Like,
You say that now.
Yeah.
That's so, it's
Exactly.
funny. Connor's like, you say that now, but that's funny. When I was in Portland, Connor and I were like at that bar area. We're like, yeah, this is going to be easy. And you're like, you say that now, but when you're out there, it's a different story. And it really truly is. Yeah. So what do you guys think of the legitimacy of this encounter? Do you think it actually happened, or do you think it just could?
Are you familiar with the 1983 pamphlet Ape Cave and the Mount St. Helens Apes?
Not me personally, no.
Not me.
Sounds vaguely familiar.
There was an article in a pamphlet where they talked about that, and they said that it was actually kids campers, the YMCA camp, me camp. The counselors said that it was a tradition to go up to the top of that hill and throw rocks down in the canyon, and that the canyon walls distorted voices. That was like a direct assault on the story. The only other problem is the story was written by a newspaper article, by a newspaper journalist. They're always kicking things up to make, get reviews and increase.
Get a good story.
I don't know. It's
now that you say that, I didn't know the name of it, but yeah, I did hear that, and I don't know if that's true or not, but it's.
I don't either. Yeah, that could be anything. I mean, it's a good story. It's a great story.
It needs to be made into a movie.
That'd be freaking awesome. That'd be
Dude,
badass.
Seriously. One of the last photos on here, Albert Ostman and John Green. The whole story of Albert Ostman, guys, what do you think of that? The legitimacy, because there's so much that doesn't make sense about it, but that does. It's just a crazy encounter. What's your guys' personal opinion on it?
I kind of thought I kind of jumped off the boat on this one. I don't necessarily believe him anymore. I listened to, I think his name is John Kirk.
Yep.
He went way into the story, and he found lots of irregularities. And there's a big question he asks about the time frame that Ostman came out of this and where, and it didn't make sense. But yeah, I just think it's too big of a story. It sounds like your typical old timey story, and I think he said, I gave the Sasquatch some tobacco or some snuff or something, and they were trying to hook. And then there's some kind of controversy with this story, because I don't know if he initially said this or changed it later on, but he said that the older ones were trying to hook him up with the young Sasquatch?
I think I've heard that as well. Yeah. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, I
would have, if I was Albert Ostman, I'd have gone on with it. I'd have been like, and we hooked up and
row
ride this train all the way.
Well, I mean, would it technically be bestiality if it's human-like?
Wow, here we go.
Oh my gosh. No.
What kind of podcast
Someone,
is this, Tate?
I don't know.
Patty after
you guys
probably.
I hope you guys know me enough that I have no filter. I just someone had to say it.
Really?
Did they
say like if we were all thinking it? Like we were all thinking it. No, we weren't.
You were all thinking it, but didn't want to say it.
This is the story where he's like carried off in his sleeping bag, right?
That is correct.
It's so wild, dude. Like it would make a great movie, but it's like
I don't know. It can be a boring movie.
The thing that sticks with me is the story is it's crazy and it's totally out there and it's totally just ridiculous in a lot of ways. But he also mentions specific details about the animals that, like the way he describes their hands, right? you see those exact same features in hand casts that were pulled 60, 70, 80 years later.
Oh, that's weird.
And
Okay.
so things like that make me think maybe something did happen to him. Maybe he did see one, but I don't necessarily think that the entirety of his story is true, which of course is a huge problem for the whole thing. But I don't know. It's weird. I don't like how weird it is. I mean, I like how weird it is. I just don't know how accurate it is. But there are some details that are interesting. If he's making them up, he guessed really well, you know.
Well, they didn't have internet back then, and I don't know how many reports on Bigfoot were out, you know, at the time that you could get your hands on very easily. So, and the stuff he's saying is, you know, accurate to what people report today.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
like you
that's
said,
the
Conor,
weird part.
Maybe he just maybe something did happen, like you said, that maybe he had a tendency to over exaggerate it.
But then if it was real, why would you over exaggerate it?
That's who knows exactly.
Why would Todd Standing
because he's trying to get money. That's why.
Fake footage,
I don't know about Ostman.
With every sentence that starts with "Why would Todd Standing?" the ending of that sentence, the answer is because money.
Yeah.
I will say this about Todd Standing. He does know his stuff. As far as his evidence goes, I don't think any of it's real. Not. He's smart, but I just don't think his stuff is real. The evidence that he shows people. It wasn't. I'm trying to remember. Were you, Conor, telling me about? Or who was it? Somebody was telling me that the place that he took Jeff Meldrum actually saw a Bigfoot, so Meldrum is more like apt to believe.
That he saw into night vision.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who told me that. Somebody did.
I think, as far as I know, that seems to be accurate. It seems to be that
it was somebody else's spot.
It was somebody else's spot. Standing took them there. Jeff definitely saw something. It seems to be one of them, and so I think that I mean, it's a good spot. But the problem is, if Todd Standing takes you to a place that's a good spot and you see something,
you're going to believe Todd Standing.
What did you see? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. It's which one of Todd's buddies might it have been or not. You know, I don't know. I didn't see what the thing was. I didn't see what Dr. Meldrum saw. So I who knows?
It's hard to say, really. Okay, so we're wrapping up here for the podcast. So, guys, I'm just going to ask you what's some of the craziest stories you've ever had in the field, or just anything
legit or hopeless?
Raymond, I know one that I know two of them I can say, but I want to hear what you guys have.
Well,
first.
one of mine are associated with Todd Standing himself, so I mean,
jeez.
Did you make money? No.
Yeah.
Damn. All right, I guess I'll do this because it's the first time I've actually talked about this. I investigated a report in the San Bernardino Mountains up near Twin Peaks, and it was a claim of a Sasquatch in a tree that these hikers were walking. The mom was videotaping the girls, and in the background, she caught a Sasquatch about 25 feet in the air in a tree, and it was making noises, making faces. They were close enough to make eye contact. The kids saw it, and then they all backed out. And I was provided with the footage and still grabs from the footage. I went to the location. I lived in the San Bernardino Mountains at the time, and so I was there pretty quick as soon as the call came in. She took me to the location. We walked the whole thing. On the quarter-mile hike out to the location, every single fallen tree was knocked over by a Bigfoot. Wow. And there, all the water trails in the dirt road were squatch prints. We got to the location, and the photo that she showed was a shadow that resembled a head and shoulders coming out from behind an oak tree. And from her perspective, it was about 35 feet away and about 20 feet up in the air, based on what you see in the video. she said that she's visited back there frequently and left apples out, and the apples are gone, and how else are apples are going to disappear in the forest? You know, just lots of things like that. I went out there by myself about a week later and did a lot of measurements and tried to recreate the scene. And it wasn't until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon I realized that was about the time she was there. The sun dropped behind the mountains and started casting shadows in the pine trees, which were about 100 yards behind the oak tree. And I fell in the same shadow. And it was actually in the evergreens, not in the dead oak tree that had no leaves or anything on it. But if you were to go to the right angle on the right part of the road, you could take pictures and video. And I recreated the whole thing of that shadow from those trees. Let's say that maybe it was a squatch in the evergreens. So there, in the pictures and the video, there was an evergreen branch that was hiding the rest of the body. And from the perspective of the video and where she was standing, without being able to move around, it would look like that shape was behind an evergreen branch, but it was in an oak tree. The evergreen trees were about a couple hundred feet behind that oak tree, and there was a really steep hill that went down to where the evergreens were. Those evergreens were 80 feet high, and based on the perspective, if it had been in the oak trees, it would have been about 40 feet high, 20 feet wide, because the shadow was so far back. But you know what I'm trying to say? Like, you really have to see the photos that I recreated to understand what I'm saying. But either way, 100% exaggerated. There may have been she took a picture, she saw the shadow, and then she, whatever. But there's just no way that was actually legit. No way. I recreated 100% debunked. She said, I didn't respond back. I was sent there by the BFRO, reported everything back to the BFRO, and it was done. A month later, she messaged me and said, "Hey, Todd Standing's coming down." And he actually flew down you're going to love this part. This is where it gets wild. Now, remember, at this point, I had not contacted her back yet and said it's a hoax. I just kind of let it go, Todd Standing comes from Canada to California, goes to the site, says it's 100% legitimate. It gets better. It makes national news.
Oh my God!
You can Google this right now.
I think I know what you're talking about, dude.
I'm going to get there. Let me finish this. So, in order to prove, to go 100% balls out, we're going to make this real. He helped her file a suit against the U.S. Forest Service for failing to protect the animal, the creature. Jeez. And this made national news. Now, this just smells like Todd Standing. So Matt, I actually sent it to Matt, and I said, "Matt, look at this news article. He already knew about the investigation I did, knew it was a complete hoax. And as a matter of fact, Tate, when we were at the Gorman expedition, that's when I told Matt about it. He immediately picks up his phone and tweets out that the San Bernardino Mountain hoax that's in the national news was 100% hoax proven by the BFRO.
Oh, I've seen that tweet. Yep.
2 days later, she's messaging me saying, "You've got to help me. Matt Moneymaker doesn't understand that it's legit. You've got to help me make this legit." And I'm like,
"Oh, geez."
She said, "I'll give you whatever you want. You got to say it's legit. Tell him it's legit." I'm like, and I just laid it out for her. I showed her all the pictures I took. I showed her the recreations I did, all the measurements I took. This is 100%. I recreated the whole video and proved in the video how the shadow that she was purporting was the head of a Bigfoot was actually a shadow in a stand of evergreens a couple of 100 feet behind the dead oak tree, and proved 100% without a doubt that it was a hoax. The whole thing was a hoax, which means that the whole story about I saw facial expressions, it was grunting at me, it was shaking the tree, it terrified my kids. That whole line of story was 100% of a hoax. Mm-hmm. But at that point, it was too late because she'd already taken it to the hoop. by
Oh,
going
man.
with Todd Standing to file this lawsuit against the U.S. Forest Service, and it made national news.
God.
You can Google it. You can read about it, but that was 100% hoax.
Yeah.
And if you want to scroll back on Matt Moneymaker1 on Twitter, you'll find out where he said the BFRO has proven this is 100% hoax.
That's so funny.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, I
last
found out
week-
about that one, Ray, when right after she came out with those claims before Todd Standing came down, because I'm here in SoCal, so those are my local mountains. I've hiked all over there. Now, was it in the Crestline area?
No, it was, well, I mean, if you're looking at it the big picture, yeah, but that's just like everybody says they're in Big Bear when they're in Lake Arrowhead, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no. The news tends to generalize areas as well.
So the actual location was on a section of unpaved road called Old Toll Road, which stretches from the Shell Station at 5 Points in Twin Peaks all the way out to Peninsula Drive in Lake Arrowhead. And
Oh, so it's over there.
I know exactly where that is. Exactly.
And here's
Yeah.
the thing. She had just moved up to the mountains, and I think she thought she was walking in like barren wilderness of the forest. But that section of road has Twin Peaks to the north, has the golf course, the Lake Arrowhead golf course to the northeast. The west side of it is completely miles of houses through the whole Lake Arrowhead and Blue Jay area. To the south is Jensen's Market and all of Blue Jay on 189. And it's completely locked in. This Sasquatch would have to walk down Highway 189 in front of God and everybody to get to this one little strip of, and the only reason this area, it's probably a 2-mile area by maybe a 1/4 mile wide, and the only reason it's undeveloped is because that road, it was so subjected to, they couldn't stop it from washing out. There's even gates on both sides, and it's a great place to go hiking. But it's like being in Central Park and saying there's a Squatch in Central Park. You got miles of homes and major highways that are never empty, ski resorts. I mean, there's just so much stuff right there in this one section. You want to talk about, Big Bear, you want to talk about Holcomb Valley, Deep Creek. There's a lot of places where, okay, maybe there's one over there. Maybe there's one that was passing through. I'm personally of the belief that about every 7 years, because if you look back at all the sighting reports out of the San Bernardino Mountains, there are a lot of sightings. They go back all the way to the beginning of the 20, all the way back to early 1900s, and even some murmurings of them back in the 1800s. But if you look at all the sightings, the reports come in about every 7 years. We'll get a cluster of 4 or 5 sightings. And those San Bernardino Mountains, they across the Cajon Pass to the Angeles National Forest. And those mountains go all the way out to Indio, Palm Desert. And if you've ever heard of the Borrego Sandman, that's all.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's a chance that maybe it's some kind of a migratory path through the San Bernardino Mountains where they move through every 5 to 7 years. You get a cluster of sightings and then it just dies out for a while. And if you look historically, now, my sighting up there, the thing that got me into this, I was driving from Big Bear to Crestline. It was in 2009. I had to drop off my daughter at her mom's house, and I was heading back home. And I drive fast in those mountains. I was on Highway 18 going through a section called the Arctic Circle. It's between the Big Bear Dam and Snow Valley Ski Resort. And it's real steep mountains that go up about 1,000 feet on the uphill side, and the down, it's a guardrail and a cliff that just drops down to a massive valley. And it's a 4-lane area. Some of it's 2-lane and some of it's 4-lane, but it's very desolate. No houses, cars, nothing there. And I was cruising through. I was rolling about 65, 70 through there, and I'm going around a long sweeping curve just below a section of the Dory Bridge. And I'm always watching ahead for cops and whatnot of the roadway. And about a 1/4 mile ahead, I see this dude jump down off the mountainside, runs across the highway and jumps over the guardrail. I was close enough to see. I thought it was a guy wearing robes with a beard and long black hair.
It was Matt Moneymaker.
Right. And so I pull over, I look down over the guardrail where he went over, and there's all the bushes are like smashed down. So like if you're looking over the side, as if something had been jumping down there quite frequently, it was all trampled down. But it went straight down for probably about 1,000 feet. You can see it on Google Maps. Near mile marker.
That was
40.
on the Finding Bigfoot episode, right? When they went to the Los Angeles area.
Right. And so I drove around the corner. I'm thinking this guy's running from the cops. I think I'm gonna get around the next corner. There's be a car pulled over, and there's a bunch of cops, and the guy just probably hoofed it up the hillside and came down the other side and ran over the guardrail. No cops. There was no broken down vehicles. I couldn't figure out where this guy came from. I go home, tell my buddy about it, and he says, "What if it wasn't robes he was wearing? What if it was fur? And you just watched a large furry guy run across the highway and jump over the guardrail nowhere?" And that's when I was like, oh, you know, because matrixing works both ways. You know, you can make you see fur, or it can make you see, you know, I'm looking at this guy going, I'm thinking he's wearing black robes, but then it's the middle of August. Why is he wearing black robes?
When did Hugh Hefner get up here?
So now, you know, I don't know what I saw that day. You know, when we recreated with the Finding Bigfoot team, I did not have enough information to be able to definitively say, you know, Bobo goes over and tries to recreate it. They say, "Do you think he was shorter or taller?" I couldn't tell you if he was shorter or taller than Bobo because I was doing 70 approaching from a quarter mile away. And I just didn't have enough. I didn't have enough information when I saw it to be able to compare it to anything. I just know it was a dude running or jumped over the side in the middle of nowhere. And maybe my eyes thought it was robes and it was actually fur, and I saw a furry guy, which how many furry guys are out in the middle of nowhere?
Ray, is this the canyon? Is this the canyon between Snow Valley Resort and Big Bear Lake?
Yep, the dam.
Yeah, so I go up Snow Valley, snowboard up there, and when you get to the top, there's a vista, and I can look down, and I don't know anybody that would walk down and like that.
So it is that point
steep,
you're talking about,
extremely steep.
That turnout you're talking about is called Lakeview Point. At that point, you're at 7,000 feet. And you can look over the side and you're looking down. It's obvious. It's legitimately a cliff that goes down, goes all the way down to Siberia Creek, that whole area. So you're talking probably 1,700 feet straight down.
Yeah. And that leads kind of over to where the 38 is, which it extends. I mean, there's a lot of forest that goes out there.
There's a lot back there. You're talking about the whole San Gregorio Wilderness. The San Gregorio Wilderness, and the other side of that, when you come up on the other side of the gorge, you're getting in the area of Angeles Oaks and Forest Falls, which is about 30 miles away. So I mean, there's nothing going there.
So
I'll
Conor,
talk to you later about it when I got a friend that saw something in the 80s, not too far from you. But I'll let you know about it after.
Your buddy saw something in the 80s. I saw something in 2009. You know, I mean, it's not a perpetual Bigfoot area like Northern California is. It's just, it happens, but it's just not that often. And you know, when you get somebody like the one that filed that report, you know, it just rips away any legitimacy you have to these scattered. It automatically makes them all look. You know, why would there just be one showing up every 7 to 10 years? You know, I think it's a migratory thing. I think they migrate through every now and then, whether it's a deal with the environment, where their food sources get scarce where they're at and they're going to move to another area for a while, or if they do it to mix up the gene pool. I don't know what's going on or why that would be, but that seems plausible, you know?
Yeah, who knows? So, hey, Conor, so what's a crazy story that you've had?
What's a crazy story that I've had?
Yep.
So I got clear heavy bipedal stomping outside of one of my camps a couple months back. In July. This is more than a couple months now. Is that the story you want to hear?
Go for it. Yeah, whatever crazy story you have and you want to share it.
I mean, that's the only one that is crazy enough to be like, you know, crazy. I was camping alone up in Mount Hood National Forest at a good spot, and just about dark, this thing starts stomping just back and forth across the little dirt road from where I am. You know, you can basically feel the footsteps, all that.
Oh,
it was terrifying. It was awesome. So that's the like craziest thing that I've had as far as like an interaction with what I assume was a Sasquatch, right? I think I might have filmed a couple of them on a thermal imager back in 2018, which is also kind of cool. It's the least impressive thermal footage in the history of all time. But based on the context of the situation, I think that's probably what they were, you know? That's kind of cool.
Yeah. I think you and I kind of talked about that a little bit too.
Briefly, yeah.
Briefly, because I showed you mine, and you're actually doing some cool stabilization to it.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be cool.
Yeah.
I have 2 short stories that were kind of crazy. Well, my people have heard my thermal story because I've told it on this podcast and other ones. When I was with you, Connor, up and I don't want to say where exactly, but we were out there looking for Sasquatch a little bit, and what sucks is I was only there for a short amount of time, so couldn't stay out there as long as I really wanted to, not be so tired to catch my plane the next day.
Yeah.
But we're walking back, and we had to cross a couple creeks, and there was this one, the bigger creek. I tried climbing up there, and I was wearing the wrong pants for this. They don't stretch. So I forced my leg up, and right in the groin area, my pants just ripped. And it wasn't like a little tear. It was like my whole junk was hanging out, dude. And then some.
Whoa.
But
luckily it was very dark.
Luckily it was very dark. Yeah. But yeah, my pants ripped, and so I took a picture of them and I posted later. I was like, sometimes when you're out squatching, you just kind of take risks, and I can't remember exactly what I said, but it was pretty funny. and then my other quick story is it was on a BFRO expedition that Raymond Ray was on that I helped Matt set up. Bobo was there, and so Bobo was like setting up his truck because he was camping and it was on dirt road, so I was helping him like tape up his truck so dirt didn't get in the back when he was sleeping, and because he has like some kind of allergy thing or something. And I don't know if don't quote me on that, but anyway, that's what I got. So I was with him and everybody else, Matt and Raymond and everybody else went to this mountain. I don't want to say exactly where. And so Bobo and I kind of left like maybe an hour later, and it was scaring me. I get scared in the dark. But what scared me, I thought I was going to die because Bobo was like driving and he was kind of swerving into the left lane, oncoming traffic. And he's like,
"Oh no,
Tate, can you drive pretty good?" So
while he's in the driver's seat.
Can you drive pretty good?
Oh,
yeah, he asked me, he was like, "Hey, Tate, can you drive pretty good?" I was like, "Yeah, I think I can." So we get to a gas station, we end up switching seats, and I was driving the rest of the night. Oh
my goodness, Tate.
That's a good funny Bobo story that I haven't told yet. So, Jeremiah, have you ever had any crazy stories or anything?
All right. So first off, I'm going to say something not popular, but okay.
What was that?
Was that an EVP? I don't know. So I'm going to say that I am a guy who doesn't pass judgment unless I have a lot of evidence. And I know this is unpopular, but I am neither pro or con on Todd Standing being a hoax. I need to get more evidence. Maybe I'll talk to him someday. That's just me putting that out there. Anyways, I have not been in the field yet because I'm an interviewer, but maybe someday that will change. But the craziest story I've heard on my podcast is my favorite is this gentleman named Rick Rellis. I love this. He was in a state park and all of a sudden they see these orbs in front of them, floating orbs. And they say what happened was they look behind them and there's a squatch in the path controlling the orbs, but using the orbs to distract them. Now, I'm not saying that's a true story or not, but it's a pretty amazing sci-fi story either way. Like, that's my favorite weird story. Yeah.
So there was a
hilarious
guy in Big Bear, and he said that he saw a yellow and green orb materialize, and the squatch stepped out of it. And there's definitely stories about orbs, and there's also been a lot of people who are of the convention that there may be, not all of them, there's definitely a physical creature. But if humans die and become ghosts, and then you get EVPs and you can see light things and whatnot, what's to stop a Sasquatch from going into some kind of similar state of being when it dies.
Exactly.
And I remember this. The guy that said that, he was like in a neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like, right? Like he was sitting in the back of his like truck, and there's like fencing, and there's a street full of cabins. And he's
There's like
"Yep,
there's
right
like
there."
a 7-Eleven right there, and there's like 100 people at the gas station.
It's actually a Motel 6, but yeah, that's all right there.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I'm going to say one
So-
thing real quick. When I was talking about Claudia Ackley, she didn't sue the U.S. Forest Service. It was the California Department of Fish and Game. My bad. Straight up.
Oh, okay. So Jonathan, what's your crazy story?
Oh man.
Dude, tell that. I'm trying to tell you what to say on your own.
Go
doing
for it.
your own-
Go for it.
I'll just say this. My personal favorite of yours is I actually helped. Can I say this, that you're in the process of a video?
Like, no, go ahead.
So Jonathan, I will say this. This is a crazy story. I don't want to tell your story, but I'm just going to tell my perspective of it. It's one thing when you see a video and you're like, that's fake, or people are like, oh, the Patterson Gimlin film is fake.
Mhm.
But when you actually meet the person and spend time with them, then you kind of tend, like, they kind of put off that vibe that they're not lying about what they saw or filmed.
Sure.
And so there was this video, but this is way before I ever met you, Jonathan. There was this video. I was like looking at Bigfoot videos. I saw it on Facebook, and it was like your video of that weird sound you heard in Lost Camp.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know about this. I don't feel like the guy's hoaxing. But when I finally met you this past July, and you were talking more about it, and I helped you do some recreation, some video work on that. I tend to believe you for sure that there was something going on, but you can definitely tell what happened if you want.
Yeah, I'd love to tell that one. So what happened there was I was out there. It was my first time going up there. Like I said, I was listening to this podcast, and that they go into the PG film and everything around it in great detail. So I was like, already, like, I gotta get up there. So I went up there with a friend, and we were there for 4 days. And on the last night, Rowdy Kelly joined us, and in the morning we were packing up, and Rowdy was going to take me down to the film site because I tried to go to the film site the day before, and I walked all around there, couldn't find the film site, couldn't make it out. It turns out I was like 50 yards from it, but anyway, so we're packing up, and I'm doing these little outtakes because I'm making my first video, and I wanted to do a good job on these, and as I hit record, I step back and I flub some lines. So I go forward again. I stop the video. I hit record again and I step back and I say the line. I didn't flub it, but it didn't make the final cut. So it was in my phone as just that it was going to be deleted, And but so I was going over my footage, and I hit play and I noticed this yell. Now I didn't hear that yell at the time, and the people in camp with me were a dude named Jeff Kelly. He has a very long-running podcast, right? And then there's Rowdy Kelly, who and his friend Greg, who is not into Bigfoot at all. He was just kind of along for the ride, cool guy. But so they're all packing up camp. I'm kind of packing up camp, and that's when I did those lines. And I have them on film a minute before, less than a minute before, and less than a minute after, and they're talking to each other. Okay, and so you have this weird yell that popped up that I don't remember hearing. So there's a lot of weird things. Like I plugged it into, like I've done music for years, so I have a decent understanding of sound waves and how sound works. And when you hear my voice on the video, it's at a certain level, of audible. And when you hear this yell, it's about just as loud as my voice, only the audio wave is tiny. It's this tiny little audio wave, and I try to beef it up. I try to do so much to it, add, just to get more information of what it could be. And I couldn't get anything out of it because the sound wave is so tiny, right? And Rowdy was saying maybe it was Jeff, maybe it was. I'm asking Jeff. I go, do you do any yells? And it was weird because we were leaving. Like, why would you do a call when you're leaving other than it's for fun? We've been there for 4 days, and he's right in front of me. Like, I don't remember looking at him while I was filming, but he was right in front of me. I don't see how he could have turned, yelled, and then continued the conversation with Rowdy. And Rowdy didn't hear it. I didn't hear it. but it's on my phone. So it left me scratching my head. And then when we went back this summer, I was hell-bent on, trying to just see if I can do some sort of recreation. Now, things aren't going to be exact, and it's never going to be damming or whatever it is. And so we started doing this recreation, but the weirdest part of it was the easiest one to eliminate was when we stood right where the campers are.
Right where the
three people were.
Yeah, right where you said Rowdy and Jeff were.
Jeff and Greg. Greg had walked off he was on the other side of the truck, but I mean, within 10 feet. And when we did that yell, it was like, it came up loud on the phone, loud. And this guy, Jeff, has a really baritone voice. And when he did that, if he would have yelled, it would have been way louder than mine. I've heard him do calls, and it's insane. Well, and it's this almost too good to be true vocalization of I don't know what. And I've been kind of on a mission to see if I can get more information off of it. I sent it over to a guy named Todd Hale. He's supposed to see if we can get it to David Ellis. We'll see how this works out.
Nice.
But
It was interesting because you and I tried like so many spots in Louse Camp, and if people have never been to Louse Camp, it's pretty isolated, and you're in a kind of a bowl type environment. So we went down to the creek. We went to where they were at. We went to like the far
and we do
end.
yells in multiple directions, right?
We do
like
yells
we go
in
down,
multiple
we
directions.
went down to the creek,
bases.
and we'd yell against the ridge. We'd yell toward the camera, and the yell that matched. I don't want to say exactly.
Yeah, I don't want to say exactly where it was. I kind of
want
to
see it in the video. It's okay.
But dude,
I have no problem saying it because
I was there and helped.
It would be not nice to tell the story and leave everybody hanging. But the yell that sounds most like what was captured is that. Well, I don't know when I'm gonna make this video, so
okay.
So the yell that sounds most like as far as reverberation and I don't know, loudness, just overall sounds most like it was about 100. What would you say? How many yards would you say? 80 yards behind me,
give or take. Yeah, and it was
where it drops into Notice Creek.
Yeah, it was when we tried it. We were like, let's try it at this spot because there's kind of a little path over here, and it's kind of right behind where tents would be too. When we played the video back of that spot, you and I both looked at each other. We were like,
I remember,
dude, that's just, it has to be the spot because it sounds almost exactly like your video.
It was that moment we hit play, heard the yell, and then I compared it, and we were like, dude, that's pretty close. Now the difference is when I got home, I threw it on the audio wave. The audio wave is huge, but the sound is similar. So
that's weird.
I don't understand why.
What do you think, Conor? I mean, because I know Jonathan does some music, and I know Conor, you've worked in like a record store, and you record and write music too. I mean, what do you think about it?
The fact that it sounds the same, but the actual like visual waveform is different is weird.
Mm-hmm.
That's bizarre.
Yeah.
I would like to hear all of the different yells from different spots. I'd be interested in hearing that, but I don't know what the I don't know why something could sound so loud but be so different in the actual sound. That was a terrible sentence, but you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
I totally got that.
Okay. Yeah, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. I don't have an answer for that. It's weird.
Hey, you guys want to see something funny?
Sure.
So I had to look up that article.
See or hear?
See. I had to look up that article to make sure that I was, had all the details right. That's where I caught that it was California Fish and Game and not U.S. Forest Service.
Mm-hmm.
But I just noticed that she is showing the news reporter a cast that she made. And,
oh boy.
Take a look at that cast.
Oh, wow.
Look at that. That's she's got some plaster there.
I don't know, dude.
Wow. I thought it was a cow patty at first, like a dried out cow patty.
It's a little known fact that when a blob squatch leaves a footprint, it's just a big blob.
It's just-
You know?
Squat's footprint.
Yeah.
That was great.
Wow.
maybe that's a thing. Maybe there's so many blob squatch videos. Maybe there's blob squatch prints all over.
That's the actual thing. Yeah.
That
That's
could
an
be a new
ornament.
exhibit, Connor.
Oh,
Blob squatch footprints.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is outstanding. Jeez.
Can we get a signed copy of that? You want to go back to Lonesome Ridge Road and us doing calls?
yes.
That was probably the greatest. That's the story I should have told.
Tell
right?
it. Just tell it.
Just be a quick. I'll tell it real quick. We're on Lonesome Ridge Road. It's like 11:30 at night or something like that. We were being.
I thought it was
quiet.
later. Oh no, that was.
It was later. So I go. Let's do some calls.
Oh yeah. No, that was that rock slide up just the road from camp. It wasn't
Correct. Yeah,
Lonesome Ridge
okay.
yet. Okay, yeah.
All right. So we started doing some calls, and we do this big call, and right away we get this like distant vocalization. And
There was
we're
four
going,
of us
nice.
that heard it. There
There's
was
four
you,
of us
me,
that
and-
heard it, and all of us went dead silent. Like, we looked at each other. Did you hear that? It was legit. So we waited
Dude,
a little
we
bit.
all-
We do another call,
We heard it again.
and 10 seconds later we hear this again. Oh my God, there it goes, and we're walking around the truck, where to come from. We're arguing about where it came from. Then we hear it again, and it was Tate's cousin in the back backseat, his 11-year-old or something. He's
I
going,
think he's-
"Woo," laughing at us.
But the way it sounded from the back of my truck, it sounded like it was coming from in the valley.
I thought
Dude,
that
I got so mad at him. I was like, "You need to be quiet, man.
you were
can't do
pissed,
that."
man. But we were laughing. He's a kid. It was funny, but yeah, you were
I
pissed.
I went Matt Moneymaker on him.
Whoa, dude.
Okay, maybe not that extreme. But yeah, I was like, don't do that ever again. Just
Funny.
But you know what? Like you said, he's a kid. I laugh about that now, but like when you're in the moment and you're like, it's not funny.
I thought it was hilarious at the time, but
Yeah, you guys
Yeah.
you
But it
guys were
sucked.
laughing. It was like, that's so disappointing because
It was.
I was so excited, like, dude, finally. And it was a good area too, but whatever. Well, thank you guys. I know we went overtime, and this should be a great episode.
Yeah, it was a good time, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun.
So have a good night, and I'll talk to you guys again later. I don't have a good ending. Like, you know how Jeremiah, you're always trying to find a good ending. I can never find one either.
Yeah, I kind of just do whatevs, but
But on that note, good night, guys.
see you all.
See you guys.